Okay, let's give everyone a minute to join in. While you're all joining in, let's do tech check. Where are you calling in from? Florida. Oh, but it's nice there right now. Texas. I was just in Austin, Texas. We had our team retreat down there. Amazing time. Missouri, Michigan, okay, all over. We got some Canadians in here. Awesome. Anyone from Europe or Australia on the line? Time zone, maybe not. Montana, more people from Canada, Alberta. Let's see. Wow, we got a lot of people from Canada on here. This is great. So this is good. You guys can hear me. We've got about 70 people in the room right now. Let's go in and kick this thing off. So for those of you that haven't been to one of these sessions before, this is our monthly new feature recap. And in this session, what we talk about is what we released last month, so you keep an idea of everything that's changing and improving in financial sense. But we also spend a good bit of time talking about what's coming next and getting feedback on a lot of the functionality we're releasing. And it's just a really great place for you guys to learn about what's new and how you can get more out of financial sense, but also for us to really understand what to build next and how to build it. So let's jump on in. Okay, I have to apologize. I don't know if you guys can hear it. Can you guys hear my fire alarm going off right now? Is that loud? Because it's loud here. Wow. Zoom's doing a really good job at canceling out the noise because it is ear piercing. But we're going to continue on. I'm going to fight through it for you guys. Um, I think they're doing some tests today. I hope it's a test. So let's jump in to some of the new functionality we released last week. Let me share my screen. Let's pull it up. Okay. So first off, uh, let's talk about an update to client tasks. Two updates actually. Let's go to a better project than this. I bet this one is client tasks. Perfect. So now with client tasks, you can see which client or team member completed it. So if I, as a firm user, come in, for example, and mark this completed, it's going to show that Sharon completed this task. If the client marked it completed, it's going to show the client completed the task by showing the client's name. So you know whether it was a client that marked it completed or a team member marked it completed with the time and date stamp. Just giving you a little bit more visibility there, which is helpful. Um, Another big thing, which is kind of related, we talked about this a little bit last week, but is now we have a client audit log. So if you click actions, you can see a client audit log, and it'll tell you all the actions a client has taken. So there's none on this one. But well, and again, this audit log is just for the client portal and client requests. So you can see like when the client viewed the portal or the task list. You can see when they marked something completed, when they uploaded something. So it just gives you a better view of if you need that audit trail, like when the client not only just viewed it, right? Like, did they look at it, but never complete it? So you can call them out on their line as they do sometimes. Um, and it would list like, it also would list the IP address. Let me see if I can find a better one that shows it. Let's try this. This one have actions. Yeah, so you can see a little bit here. It shows the event. So what they did, they viewed the task list, who it was, what's their IP address, and uh, the date and time it happened. So that's like an example. So we got some chats, a lot of AI assistants. Okay, so that's two things around client task. The audit log, which you can access from actions, and the ability to see when a task was completed and by who, whether it was a team member or a client themselves. Next thing, big thing around billing that a lot of people have been asking for is a payments report. So now under billing, you'll see payments. And here you can see all the a log of all the individual payments made. So this is helpful for reconciliations. especially if you're not using QuickBooks Online for your general ledger. So you can see all that here. And then, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. You can also filter it down, just track all the payments that have been coming in across the board. The time zone should be the same as your time zone. So whatever time zone you live in, it should match that. Abby, if you're having issues with some of your invoices syncing to QuickBooks Online, I would reach out to our chat support team. They can usually they'll be able to figure out the issue. It may be like a client's not linked. It could be a million different reasons why it's not syncing, but they can take a look and see the reason why. Also, if you are having issues with invoices not syncing, you'll see why it's not synced. If you click here, it should give you a potential error code, and then you can try to sync it. So, for example, this client is not linked to QBO. That's why this one's not syncing. So I would have to go link the client to QBO, and then I can sync it. But if this isn't helpful, you can talk to the chat support team, and they should be able to help you. A total to the AR report with a billing screen for total amount outstanding. So this question around accounts receivable, you want to see a total. Stacy, so I know we have the totals up here for the period of times, but you want to see total overall, correct? Not just in a period of time. And would it be fine just to maybe display that at the top of this chart right here? Okay, total overall. Okay, that's good feedback. I'm gonna make a note of that. All right, so next thing, if you are billing out of financial sense on the unbilled time report, so if you like to bill hourly work, we've made some improvements to make it a little bit easier. We were seeing that people were having issues because there wasn't enough data being displayed when creating an invoice. So in this example, let's do Adeline Collins here. Let's say I want to add time I've tracked to this invoice to bill the client for. Now what you'll see is a little bit more information displayed. You can see the service item. So what do we add? We added hold on. So, one thing is, so you can see the team member. So the team member that tracked the time, if you wanted to filter off that. And you can see the date the time was tracked, and you can see the notes on the entry. So a lot of people like to see all of this because when they like maybe like to invoice based off these things, based off the team member that tracked the time, based off when it was tracked, based off maybe information in the notes. So now this is all displayed here to make it easier for you to select the time entries that you want to bill for. What's really cool too is now up here, you'll see total selected. So if I select this and I select multiple entries, you'll see the total amount you're about to bill for, which is also helpful. So a few improvements we made just to make the invoicing process more seamless. Hold on. I'm curious if there's anything else that would be helpful for you guys to have in this view when trying to invoice unbilled time from the invoice. So, Irene, are you asking for a date filter on here? So date filter, maybe even a team member filter, service item filter, and you want to be able to sort by these fields. Okay. Can partial hours be billed? So Jacob, you can bill partial hours, but it has to be a separate entry. So if you tracked 20 hours in one go, you couldn't bill 10 of that 20 of the hours. Now you can write it up and down, but if you had like a 10-hour entry and a 10-hour entry for the same client, yes, you could just bill that one entry. You don't have to bill all the entries, if that makes sense. So it just depends how you're tracking the time. So Robert, you can group the items. So when you add them here, so if I added this isn't a good example because I don't have a lot of entries, but you'll be able to, you have the ability to group the line items. So you can group them all or you can group them by service item. And soon we're also gonna have the ability to group by project as well. So you do have the ability to group the entries together if you had multiple entries on here. Yep. So by project, that is coming soon. Um, Group by date. We don't have a group by date option. Um, I'm curious, is grouping by date, drop it in the chat. Is that something you guys see a lot of value in? Two responses, no other responses? Okay. Okay. I can share that with the team, especially when we start working on a group by project. All right, so let's see. Who's export? One other thing too is in this export, if you ever export your invoicing data because you want to run reporting or get certain types of insights, we have included a lot more fields to give you guys more insights if you're someone that does that. So now you can see the payment method, you can see the last payment date, you can see how if the refund amounts, if you're refunding money or providing credits, and you can see like the notes for manual payments as well. So those are some information we've included in the payment invoice export just to give you guys more insights. Um, um, okay, makes sense. So if we were grouping by date, like what periods would you want to group by date? Is it more like it's not like group by everything that was invoiced on September 20th, it's maybe grouped everything that was invoiced in a day or tracked in a day, a week, or a month. So it's like a period, technically. So group like weekly, group daily, group monthly. Is that kind of what you guys are looking for when you say date? Okay. Day, week. Okay. I will say you do have the ability to manually do that, but it, if you were creating an invoice, because when you group, you could group them all and then break out remove certain ones. But that would be a little bit of work to do it so we could see if there's a way to automate that. Okay. Um, so next big thing around invoicing is retainers. So you've probably seen this new Mark internal, and this is related to our retainer functionality we now have in Financial Sense. So in Financial Sense, if you want to now, you go to your settings and service items, you can create a retainer service item. So if I created like, I'm not going to create this one because I already have, but if I wanted to create like a retainer service item, I can mark it as a retainer. And then when you do this and you create it, so like let's create an invoice now. Let's select a client, Adeline Collins. And let's say I want to add a retainer service item. So if it's a retainer, you'll see this icon next to it, which means retainer service item when you hover over it. So let's say I want to charge a client $1,000 retainer. I create this, I send it. Now, when I go to that client's profile, so if we go to Adeline Collins, you see, and it takes a second to load sometimes. What you're going to see is, okay, I've done it a few times, so there's a lot more here. If I click it, you can see that $1,000 retainer I just sent the client up here. So I can see the retainer amount, the credit of it, and then I can invoice against it. So for example, if I create another invoice, let's say I charge 800, and so what you'll need to do is you'll need to add it again as a negative, and then also add another one, and then let's just say it's like bookkeeping. Find out, sorry. Let's say, so let's say I'm actually invoicing now $800, and I add it as a negative. And then so now, since it's already technically, let me fix this. Since it's already technically been paid, I'll mark it as paid. And then I can choose whether or not to send them a confirmation. So maybe I don't send them a confirmation because they've already made a payment, and I don't want to let them know like, hey, you just been charged $800 when they haven't really. It's just going against the retainer that they originally paid. You go to the retainer settings, you'll now see that there was $800 paid against the retainer, and now there's like you can see the balance, right? The retainer balance. So you have 1,700 now. So it's just a way, and you can have multiple I have multiple retainers here, so this is a little bit more confusing than what it would actually look like. But you can see how this allows you to do the retainers. And the whole point too, I didn't show it, but the reason you have the mark as internal is because what that's going to do now is if you mark it as an internal charge, like a retainer, it won't show the invoice, that actual invoice in the portal or notify them. So the other one I sent, like I still put it in the portal, right? They'll see the invoice for like $800. But if I mark it as internal, they won't see it in the portal because maybe you don't want them to see that in the portal because like, wait, why did I get charged $800? I already paid for that. So it would just dock it against the retainer, but not show them all the charges because the client may get confused about that. So there's a few questions. Will billing groups be, hold on 1 second. Um, okay, so will billing groups be possible in the future? For instance, I want to show one monthly fee, but have service line, all items with the price. Jesse, so I want to show. So Jesse, what you're asking is you can show all the service items, but not show a price with them, correct? Just show the total amount. And I'll come back to that. Be able to make partial payments using ACH. Stacy, partial payments is coming. I'll show you how that works. I've got a mock-up in design for that. Okay, so I'm gonna make a note of that, Jesse. Billing. Yeah, we don't have that yet, Jesse, but that's some good feedback. So we do have credit memos, right? We've always had credit memos, and you can use that for retainers. But the big issue with that, what we saw was one is if you invoice the client, let's say $1,000, and then apply a credit to their account for $1,000, is it messes up the profitability and realization reports, because now it's showing you've actually made $1,000 off the client, but you haven't yet, right? Because you just have a retainer out to them technically. So if you use a retainer, it doesn't show up in the profitability report until you invoice against that retainer. So that's one of the big differences. The other thing is now when you invoice the client in the future against the retainer, it automatically will credit against that specific retainer instead of, having to remember to do it in the future. So it's the retainer process we created is more streamlined. Um, you could use credits and debits, and credit memos, but it's not as simple. And that's the complaints that we were getting from a lot of customers around that. So that's the big difference. And Sierra, if you have more questions about that, you can reach out to our team about it. Um, how could we use that if we simply want to charge a 50% twelve? So Abby, if you use proposals, we do have deposits where you could charge 50% deposit, or you could charge 50% up front and then generate an invoice for 50% at a later date. So we do have that with the proposal functionality. Okay. Um, uh, Proposal tokens. So going to proposals, this was something we were seeing a lot of people wanted. Select a client. So now with engagement letter terms, you have tokens. So you can autofill the client name, the contact name, address, contact phone number. So if you put these tokens in there, and you save this as a template, then when you apply that template to other clients, it will autofill that information to the client's details they have on the client profile. So that was another thing. So yeah, but if we don't have it. Can you create a proposal template without selecting client? No, you cannot. I mean, but so when you're creating a proposal and you've selected a client, if you save it as a template, it's not going to keep the client on the template. But you have to be right now to create a template, you have to be in the process of creating an actual proposal. And when you create the proposal, you just say save as template. So Makia, if that's the case, what I would just do is invoice them for the deposit amount, and then once you know the total later, then you can invoice them again after the fact. That's how I would do that. If you're gonna, so like basically, let's say you want to QuickBooks cleanup, you don't know the total amount. What you can do is just invoice them, call it a deposit. Let's say it's $1,000 for the upfront deposit, and then invoice them the rest later after the fact. Is it possible? Irina wrote that down. Profile to add. That is something we're working on doing, Kathy. Okay. Um, Perfect. So let's talk about, okay, so those were a lot of the big changes that we made in the last month around the client task and the invoicing piece. So let's talk about what's coming next. And these are all things we plan to release this month in September. Some of the things may take a little bit longer. Like, they could drip into like the early October, but the goal is to release everything I'm about to share with you in September. So let's talk about the first thing. First thing is project notes. I'm gonna make a note. So you guys probably, I know a lot of you guys have asked for this, so you'll be excited to see this. So let's go to an example of quarterly bookkeeping, right? I have this in my account. You guys can't see this yet, but you'll see, what you'll see is when we release this is a notes tab on a project. And here you can drop all types of notes. And this, we got to clean this up a little bit, which is why we haven't released it, but you can drop in notes related to the project. A lot of people have been using the descriptions on tasks, but this will be a little bit better because they can also recur with the project. So what's cool is you can add anything. So you could add a header. So let's say, uh, I'm just gonna say month and close, note, and then, I could, let's say I wanna add in a bulleted test, test, and then I could also, if you want to, you could add in a table, you could add in a document if you want. So it's just like you could drop in, it's like a Notion, if you could think of it, on your project to add all types of notes. You can add in a table if you wanted to. So it's just like all types of notes you want to include related to the project for your team to see, you can store it here. What do you guys think about that? Yeah, and so the thought is too is it's going to recur with the project. So if there's like specific notes related to like a month end close for a specific client or a tax return, like any type of recurring work, your team will have those notes here. They can always go back and view those notes and have that information that they need, instead of putting it in a in a Google Doc somewhere or somewhere else. Um, this isn't a project, but it will also be available on templates if you want to put it on templates as well. We could look at adding some search functionality in this view here, so you have it. Um, okay, so let's talk about a big one, which is locking. Oh, I got ahead of myself on this. Locking documents behind invoices. So this is great. Like if you do tax returns, for example, and let's say you complete the return, you want to send that return to the client, but they cannot view the return until they make payment. And I'm using tax return as an example, but you could do this for any type of invoicing or any type of deliverables. Basically eliminating chasing your clients because they can't view the deliverables or the work until they make payment. So how will this work? There's two ways to do this. You can do this when creating an invoice. So let's say in this example, I'm creating an invoice in this design. You're going to see lock documents behind this invoice option here. You can select a document that's in financial sense to lock behind. So let's say I choose one or two. So I chose two documents to lock. Then when I send this invoice to the client, they're going to see when they're paying this invoice, there's going to be documents to view behind it. And they'll also see in their client portal. Just want to make a note real quick. Something I just thought about. Um, So when I send this invoice to the client, and I'll show you what the client view. So that's one example, right? That's how you could do it. Um, the other example is when you're, let's say, viewing a document, you'll see the ability to lock that document behind an invoice. So you could select an existing invoice that's outstanding as well. So I could choose, okay, I'm gonna lock this behind this invoice. So there's that. There's when you're viewing the documents inside of Financial Sense, and there's when you're creating an invoice, you can choose to lock a document behind it. Now, what is that going to look like on the client side? On the client side, when they log in and they're viewing the Documents tab, they're going to be able to see here that there's certain So one, when they're paying the invoice, they'll see it. But also when they're viewing the Documents tab, they'll be able to see that there's certain deliverables behind the paywall, like this return, or these 3 documents if I do multiple. If they click Pay, they can pay that invoice, and then they can now download that document. So that's how we're looking at the functionality from the highest level. What do you guys think about that? All of this, notes, everything drops this month is the goal. Right now it's just ACH and credit card. They cannot preview. Yeah, they can preview the invoice before paying if they want. Yeah, they'll be able to view the invoice over here. It's not going to work with Adobe Sign right away. So the goal is actually to build our own e-signature so you don't have to use Adobe Sign anymore. And then once we have that, which you'll also be able to do, is request payment, view the document, and then request signature all in one flow. So that will be possible, but not in this version. So the client view, again, what they're going to see here is that there's documents that need to be unlocked. You'll also be able to do this with the client task as well in the future. So you'll be able to like basically tie an invoice to a client task. When they pay that invoice, they'll be able to view the document as well. So there's multiple ways you can do it. You're just locking the docs behind an invoice. Irene, I'm not sure what's the use case for locking an invoice, right? It's for us, it's just creating a paywall for the to view documents or deliverables that you send to them. Um, okay, so next thing that some of you guys were asking about already in the chat is partial payments. So soon, this month, is the goal is you'll see an option to allow partial payments. And if you select this, you can choose the minimum payment amount that will be required for a client. And when you send this invoice, what you will see on their side is this. They'll see, so if you turn on partial payments for an invoice, they can choose to pay the full amount or other amount. They can type in that amount and then make that payment. And then, but they'll be able to see what the minimum amount is allowed is. So this is something that should be released this month as well. Oh, Irene, I don't know if we haven't talked about that piece yet. We have talked about when they're in the portal, they can already view all unpaid invoices, but the ability for them to mass select them and then pay them all in bulk. Yes, Jacob. So when we release this, you'll also be able to manually add partial payments. So let's say a client gives you a check for $100, it was $1,000 bill. You could go in and manually make a partial payment against the invoice. For locked, I don't know. I haven't thought that far yet about that, Stacy. That's a good point, though. I assume yes, to see a locked, they would have to pay in full. They, uh, Crystal, I'd have to talk to the team, but I doubt we'd give them the ability to overpay. Let me ask everyone, does it make sense to give the client the ability to overpay an invoice and then it automatically applies a credit if they do that? Yes, Renee. So like the partial payments wouldn't like you would turn it on an invoice by invoice basis. It's when you're setting up the invoice. You would have to select it, Sierra. It wouldn't be default. Yes, if they pay by check, you can manually apply a partial payment to the account or to the invoice on the back end. Okay. Yes, Renee, you'll have the ability to do that. You can go back, you'll be able to edit the invoice and apply a partial payment on the back end if they give you a check or something. Oh, I did. Yeah. Um, okay, so partial payments. We talked about the locking behind deliverables. Let's now talk about month-end close automation. So if you are using a Zenit or a Keeper or one of those month-end close automation tools, they're really powerful, right? They can really help streamline your month-end close process. They can really help you save a lot of time. And a lot of our customers are using both those tools. Like us, like and a Keeper, and us and a Zenit. But the challenge is one is it's expensive to use both. But two, the client experience is not good, right? Because now you're using maybe our portal for invoicing or asking other random questions or requesting documents, but you're using Keeper's portal for transaction related questions because they have that deep QBO integration. So this month or like in the first 1 or 2 weeks of October, we plan to release month and close automation. So you no longer need Keeper. You no longer need Zenit. You don't need to be paying two separate subscriptions. And you have a more streamlined client experience because now they're working out of one portal instead of multiple portals. Or your team experience is better because now that month and close automation rules checking is now in our system. So I want to show you guys. I talked about this last month, but we're almost done with building this out. Um, so inside of Financial Sense, you're going to see you have the ability to add month-end close tasks. These month-end close tasks will be able to run reports to check for inconsistencies in the client's file to help automate and streamline your month-end close process, all from within Financial Sense. So for example, let's say you want to review inconsistent expenses. You'll be able to click this, that report will slide out. You'll be able to see all the inconsistent expenses. It'll highlight what to look for your team or yourself. You'll be able to make those changes inside of Financial Sense without going into QBO. You can change the vendor, you can change the category, you can change a lot of different items in here. Really edit the trend because we'll have a deep two-way sync to the QBO ledger, and then publish it to QBO. And then it'll update in QBO and update in our system. And what's even better is if you don't know, you have questions for your client about this, you can easily ask your client a question about it. They'll be able to respond from within our portal when they're notified, and then you can make the changes. So it just streamlines that month-end close process. And you can have reports for inconsistent expenses, uncategorized transactions, transactions without payees, transactions coded to parent accounts over certain dollar amounts, class, location, and you'll be able to edit all of these transactions and all these items inside a Financial Sense. And you can even create custom reports. And it doesn't have to, you don't have to leave this checklist. The work can actually be done inside of FC. And what's cool too is like with Keeper and some of these other tools, you can't customize it well. Like you can't add in non-month end close tasks. It's all separated and in different sections. But in our system, you'll be able to drag them and put them into the existing workflows you already have. So I could take one from here and put it into a regular task list and really customize my workflow to be in the right order for myself and my team. Um, And so when it's when we release it this month, we'll have a webinar about it to walk you through it because it's going to be really cool and really powerful for your team. It's just going to be QuickBooks Online, not desktop. Um, this is, we do have plans in the future to integrate with Xero. Glad I could blow your mind. But yeah, really exciting stuff. Something we're really excited about releasing. Um, Definitely keep an eye out for it. It's gonna be really powerful for you and your team. Because not only like are you saving time, but you're also simplifying the month-end close process. Because now you can delegate this to someone because it's automatically gonna flag all the issues and the inconsistencies and the things they need to look for, and they'll know exactly what to update and change versus having to go and find it themselves. Okay, so let's talk about outside of month and close. I don't have a design for this, but the Google Drive and OneDrive integration. This is something a lot of you guys have been waiting on. So we do have a Google Drive and OneDrive integration right now, but it is limited. Um, right now, the matching process can be a little time consuming, matching clients and mapping clients to folders. But what it does right now is it also like if you add a new client to Financial Sense, it'll automatically create that client folder on Google Drive or OneDrive. But with the new integration that we're working on, the mapping process is going to be easier from clients to the Google Drive and OneDrive folders. But more importantly, is you'll be able to back up all your documents in Financial Sense to Google Drive or OneDrive. So it's one, it's backed up. Two, you'll be able to sync all the documents in Balloons. You'll be able to sync all the documents in Financial Sense to your desktop. So you'll have a desktop sync option. So you add a document to that desktop icon, it'll upload to Financial Sense automatically. And if you're not online, you'll be able to still view those documents. And then the other big thing too is also like right now with our Google Drive and OneDrive integration. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Uh, you can see like there might be like a Google Drive link folder here where you can open the Google Drive, right? But what you're going to be able to do is actually view those Google Drive folders and documents inside of our system without leaving, which will be nice. And then lastly, is oh, actually, I think that's it. So yeah, those are SharePoint. I don't know if SharePoint's coming with that. I have to check with the team. We were looking to see if we could do both at the same time, but I know for sure Google Drive and OneDrive. You would be able to open files from within Financial Sense, the files that are saved in Google Drive or OneDrive. So I don't know if that answers your question, Cindy. Um, Kathy, if you put the Google Drive document in a shared folder that's in Financial Sense, it should sync. They should be able to view it. Okay, thanks for the feedback, Lisa. I'll take note of that. Um, oh, and the last thing we plan to release this month outside the Google Drive and OneDrive, is I know this is a big one, small but big one. Well, it's not small, but it seems small. Is when you're on client tasks, let's say a client uploads a document, the ability to easily move it to a folder in Financial Sense. So you don't have to download it, go to the folder, upload it. You can just click, move, select the folder in Financial Sense you want it to go to. Or even if the Google Drive OneDrive integration, you should select which Google Drive or OneDrive folder you want that to go to. So that's going to be really nice. Save you a lot of time, especially if you're using the client task functionality and clients are uploading a lot of documents. Okay, that's everything. That's everything we plan to release next month. This month. We talked about a lot of the new features we released this past month. Really exciting stuff to come. There's a lot of stuff coming out this month. We've been working on it the last 2 to 3 months, and should be a lot of big releases. Anything I missed? Any questions before we end the call today? Okay, there we go. Let's see. Okay, doesn't look like there's any questions. Oh wait, no, there's some questions now. Organizers, we're still working on organizers. Um, they're not going to come out this quarter, but we're still working on the organizers. Um, we don't plan to show their emails in Financial Sense. I mean, we show their emails to you in Financial Sense, but we don't plan to show their emails to them. Stacey, I'm glad you liked that. I didn't show a copy option for the passwords in the vault. It's more of being able to copy or move a document on client task to a folder inside of Financial Sense. So the big vision for so some people are asking about the organizers or organizers and forms, and the big vision for that is for mainly around intake. You could really use it for anything, right? You could use it for surveys, you could use it for anything you use for forms. You could cancel your Cognito forms, right? But the big vision is using AI and automation to streamline and automate your processes. So a big example, if you're a bookkeeping firm, let's say you take on a new bookkeeping client, let's say you send them a proposal, they sign that proposal. Once they sign that proposal, it automatically sends them an intake form. You can collect information from them. Then when they answer those questions, it automatically takes the answers and maps it to the custom fields in the client CRM. So it stores all that client information there automatically. And then you could trigger maybe a monthly bookkeeping onboarding project to get set up once they complete the form, right? So there's a lot of cool things you could do. Now, if your tax organizer is even better, right? So let's say you send a tax organizer to a client, you'll be able to track all the organizers, this progress of the organizers when they were completed, so when they came in, and then automatically trigger a project to be created off a tax return to be created off that organizer, which then simplifies your project view. You're not having to request all these documents with open tax returns. You can actually now do first in, first out on the tax return process. Um, then also when they upload the documents, you can generate your work papers. It'll automatically read the scanned uploads and rename them. So you don't have to go in and rename all the scanned documents. So there's a lot of really cool stuff with the organizers. It's not going to have all that right away. But that's like the ultimate vision is streamline your bookkeeping intake, your tax intake, save you hours for every return, streamline how you're tracking what's coming in, first out, but also generating those work papers and renaming scanned documents automatically. Um, okay, I think that's everything. If I missed anything, please feel free to reach out to our team. It was great seeing you all here today for the monthly new feature recap. I'm going to be uploading this to YouTube, and you'll all be getting an email with a recording if you guys missed anything. So thank you all, and a lot of big updates to come. There'll be a lot to talk about next month. Take care, everyone.